Very good morning to students. Today we are going to continue with the second part of antiemetics. In this session, we shall be looking into two broad categories of antiemetic drugs, which are prokinetic drugs and 5-HT3 receptor antagonists. These two categories of drugs are very popularly used drugs, and they are also very important from the examination point of view. So let us start with prokinetic drugs. So what does the word meaning prokinetic drugs? The drugs which promote gastrointestinal transit and speed the gastric emptying by increasing the propulsive activity. So these are mainly increasing the propulsive activity of the GIT. So in a way, it is these drugs can be helpful in vomiting because they prevent the reflux back into the pharynx. So the examples of these drugs are metoclopramide, domperidone, mosapride, and etopride. We look into each one of these one by one. Before that, we shall just have a look at the role of various mediators in the GIT. The first and foremost mediator is dopamine, which acts on the D2 receptors present in the gut. So in the gut, it is an inhibitory transmitter and it delays the gastric emptying. It causes the lower esophageal sphincter relaxation and thus causes nausea and vomiting. So the drugs which inhibit or which are antagonists on D2 receptors will be increasing the gastric emptying and they will prevent the LES relaxation and thus they will be useful in vomiting. It will be useful against vomiting. So the drugs which we are going to discuss in this class will be D2 receptor antagonists because the normal action of the dopamine on the D2 receptors of the gut I have already discussed with you now. So the drugs which are used as antiemetics should be antagonists on the D2 receptor. The second important mediator is serotonin. Serotonin can act through either 5-HT4 receptors present in the gut or they can act through 5-HT3 receptors. So if they are acting through 5-HT4 receptors, they can cause augmentation of peristalsis. If they are acting through 5-HT3 receptors, then they can cause emetic reflexes. So the drugs which will be useful in vomiting, they should be either 5-HT4 agonist, then they'll be increasing the augmentation of peristalsis, or they should be 5-HT3 antagonist in order to prevent the emetic reflexes. So this difference you have to be very carefully understand to understand that very well. That is 5-HT4 receptors, their normal function is to augment peristalsis and the 5-HT3 receptors cause emetic reflexes. So the drugs which are useful in vomiting should be either 5-HT4 agonist or they should be 5-HT3 antagonist. So we'll go to metoclopramide, the first prokinetic drug. So we'll discuss the mechanism of action and the corresponding actions of metoclopramide. So it is a D2 receptor antagonist in the periphery as well as in the central nervous system. So let us see what happens because of the antagonism of D2 receptors. It will increase the gastric emptying. It will increase the lower esophageal sphincter tone. That means it will decrease the relaxation of the LES and thus it will prevent the reflux. So, and that is because of the peripheral D2 receptor antagonist action in the GIT. It can also block the D2 receptors in the CTZ, which is lying outside the blood-brain barrier, as well as it can block the D2 receptors present in the different parts of the CNS. So by blocking the D2 receptors present in the CTZ, it can cause anti-emesis, but along with that, it can cross the blood-brain barrier and hence it can block the D2 receptors which are present in the other areas of the brain, and this blockade can result to unwanted effects like extrapyramidal side effects and hyperprolactinemia with the use of these drugs. It is also having a 5-HT4 agonistic action. So it will cause augmentation of peristalsis. At very high doses, it has got 5-HT3 antagonistic action, which also adds on to its anti-emetic effects. So to remember, again, it is D2 receptor antagonist both on the periphery as well as the central D2 receptors. It has got 5-HT4 agonistic actions on the gut, and at higher doses, it can also have 5-HT3 antagonistic action. It has got rapid oral absorption. It can cross the blood-brain barrier and the placenta. So it can act on the CTZ, which is lying outside the blood-brain barrier, and it can also cross the blood-brain barrier and can block the other D2 receptors present in the CNS, which is leading to the unwanted side effects like the extrapyramidal side effects and the hyperprolactinemia. It is secreted in milk and it acts usually for 4 to 6 hours. It has got a number of drug interactions. The principal or the important drug interactions are as follows. When given along with aspirin or diazepam, it can increase the absorption of these drugs. It decreases the absorption of digoxin. It also antagonizes the action of levodopa. Levodopa is a drug which is used for Parkinsonism, which you will be learning later. And just remember for this time that it antagonizes the beneficial action of levodopa by blocking the D2 receptors in the basal ganglia. The adverse drug reactions involve muscle dystonia. So in the previous class, we had already mentioned about what muscle dystonias are. These are painful and painful contractures of muscles, and abnormal postures can be attained. As you can see in this figure, there's a painful neck contracture of this child, and he has acquired a very abnormal posture. And these muscle dystonias with metoclopramide usually occur in children. With long-term use of metoclopramide, it can result in Parkinsonian features, galactoria, and gynecomastia. Sedation and diarrhea are also seen in occasional patients with the use of metoclopramide. The metoclopramide finds a number of uses. So first and foremost, it is an antiemetic which finds use in post-operative nausea and vomiting, drug-induced vomiting, the vomiting associated with migraine and radiation therapy. It is also a gastrokinetic, or in other words, a prokinetic drug, and it is used to increase the gastric emptying just before emergency surgery in diabetic gastroparesis. It's a condition where the gut motility is decreased, diabetic gastroparesis. So in such patients also, to increase the peristalsis, you can use metoclopramide. And also for duodenal intubation, also this is used as a prokinetic. It is also used for dyspepsia and hiccups because it will increase the gastric emptying and also prevent the reflux, as in the case of gastroesophageal reflux disease. So other than antiemetic, because of its prokinetic action, it is used for the following conditions which I have just mentioned. Now we'll go to the next prokinetic drug, that is domperidone. Now domperidone is a D2 receptor antagonist on the CTZ. So CTZ is lying outside the blood-brain barrier. So it is blocking the D2 receptors present on the CTZ and thus causes the antiemetic action. It does not cross the blood-brain barrier like the metoclopramide. Hence, the domperidone is devoid of extrapyramidal side effects, which we saw in the case of metoclopramide. It also doesn't block the therapeutic effect of levodopa. So I told you in the previous slide that metoclopramide blocks the action of levodopa by blocking the D2 receptors on the basal ganglia. Now, since this drug domperidone doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, it will not block the D2 receptors in the basal ganglia, and thus it will not be blocking the therapeutic effect of levodopa. This concept you will be understanding better when you will study about the anti-Parkinsonian drugs. However, hyperprolactinemia can be occasionally seen with the use of this drug also. However, it has got some amount of lesser antiemetic efficacy when compared to metoclopramide. The adverse drug reactions are very less. It's a very well-tolerated drug. Occasionally, you can see dry mouth, loose stools, and headache and rashes in some patients. Galactoria because of the hyperprolactinemia can occur, and when given rapidly by the IV route, it can occasionally cause cardiac arrhythmias, which is also a rare adverse drug reaction seen with domperidone. Now we move to the next category of drugs under prokinetics. So in this we have first one, that is cisapride. Now cisapride has been actually taken off from the market, but we'll just mention it for the completion's sake. So the main action mechanism of action was 5-HT4 agonism. So it will increase the augment the peristalsis and increase the colonic motility, and it's principally a prokinetic drug. It is less of an antiemetic drug, it's more of a prokinetic drug. But the main problem with this drug is the adverse drug reaction, or it is metabolized by CYP3A4 enzyme. So when it is administered along with CYP3A inhibitors, there has been occurrence of dangerous ventricular arrhythmias like QT prolongation and torsidis lepointis, leading to death. Because of such fatal adverse drug reaction, this drug has been taken off from the market. One of the congeners of cisapride is mosapride. The characteristic feature of mosapride is that there is no such fatal adverse drug reaction that is seen in cisapride is absent in the case of mosapride. The other one is etopride. Now, etopride has got more of anti-dopaminergic activity and anticholinergic activity and less 5-HT4 agonism. It also doesn't cause any kind of QT prolongation. It doesn't have any interaction with CYP3A inhibitors because it is metabolized by another set of enzymes called as the flavin monooxygenases. Now, this mosapride and etopride are used for the following conditions: gastroesophageal reflux disease, non-ulcer dyspepsia, diabetic gastroparesis, chronic constipation. So these drugs, that is mosapride, etopride, they're mainly prokinetic drugs. Very less of antiemetic, direct antiemetic action is there in this case, and therefore the users are mainly the mentioned GERD, non-ulcer dyspepsia, diabetic gastroparesis, chronic constipation. Now we come to the last category of drugs, which are 5-HT3 antagonists. The examples are ondansetron, granisetron, and palonosetron. The mechanism of action is very clear from the name itself. They are antagonists on 5-HT3 receptors. So in the first part, I had discussed that chemotherapy as well as radiation therapy. This can induce vomiting by causing gut cellular damage, and this can cause release of 5-HT mediators from the intestinal mucosa, and these, through the vagal efferents, these emetogenic impulses are carried to the CTZ. Now, the 5-HT3 receptor antagonists, they block both the peripheral origin as well as a central relay of emetogenic impulse. They are metabolized by a number of cytochrome P450 enzymes, but they do not have any significant drug interactions. Just like the previous category we have seen, it is not having any significant drug interaction. Ondansetron has a duration of action about 4 to 12 hours, whereas palonosetron and granisetron, they are more potent than ondansetron and have got longer duration of action. They are also a very well-tolerated group of drugs, but the patient may have occasional headache and mild GIT problems. The uses mainly are chemotherapy and radiation-induced vomiting, post-operative nausea and vomiting. So these drugs, that is 5-HT3 receptor antagonists, they are the drugs which are very popular for chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and post-operative nausea and vomiting. And it is also used for vomiting caused by drug overdosage, diseases like uremia, etc. So with that, we conclude the session on antiemetics part 2. This is relatively a very simple chapter, and you have to mainly concentrate on preparing short notes on the prokinetic drugs and 5-HT3 receptor antagonists. Thank you all for your patient hearing.